Hey guys, as you probably already know, until 140 years ago, Japan was actually closed off to foreigners. About 300 years they didn't allow foreigners into Japan. And then 140 years ago, after fighting about it for a few years, they finally decided that they would let foreigners in again. So for the last 140 years, we've been allowed in. I'll just touch on this just briefly too. Foreigners, of course, is anybody who is not 100% Japanese and who hasn't lived in Japan all their life. So even now, so I get lots of people asking, you know, if I was born in Japan but grew up in America, or if you know, my mother's Japanese or my grandparents are Japanese, or all different sorts of combinations, and you know, would I be treated differently? Questions like that, you know. Yeah, you would be. Basically, anybody who's not 100% Japanese, if you've got one foreign parent, you know, you're called a hafu. Charming, isn't it? A hafu, so you're half Japanese, you're a hafu, which is basically foreign anyway. So, yeah, if you're not 100% Japanese and have lived all your life in Japan with both Japanese parents, you're a foreigner. You know, 1/8 foreigner, you're a foreigner. It's just the way it is. So, for the last 140 years, foreigners have been allowed in, but relative to Japan's, you know, thousands of years of history, it's really only been a very short time that foreigners have been hanging around here, you know. And we're still treated, as we've talked about in other videos, you know, we're still treated very much as outsiders, as is evidenced by the recently replaced alien card. So we haven't actually talked about this too much yet, but in July they're changing the July and August they're changing the registration system for foreigners, because until recently, or until now, we've had Gaikokujin cards that have got alien registration card written on them, and obviously the government's become aware that giving people cards that say alien registration card and then demanding that we reproduce them every time that we want to do something, so every time we want to buy something or rent an apartment or buy a car or do anything sort of official, you know, pay our tax or go to the police station or do anything at all, that we have to produce a card that says alien registration card. So basically what's been happening recently is they've started to realise that it's important for the Japanese economy to start letting more foreigners into Japan, both to live here and as tourists. They've realised that that's really going to be important for the Japanese economy from now on, because Japanese population's negative growth, so they basically need more foreigners in the country. So things like the alien registration card that are unpopular obviously need to be addressed. So to their credit, they've addressed that, and they're changing it for another system that's basically exactly the same, but we'll be using some terminology that's a little bit less insulting or a little bit less alienating, I guess. So yeah, and then recently they had a series of meetings and conferences with politicians and Japanese politicians, plus some other people that are supposed to be knowledgeable about foreign matters to do with foreign people, you know. And but very tellingly, not one foreigner was invited. So here's this big series of meetings to talk about the foreigner problem. You know, what are we going to do? We need to get more foreigners into Japan, and you know, so we need to look at what are the problems, because they'd know from their statistics that, you know, a lot of foreigners come here and then leave, you know, and a lot of foreigners come here and then leave really soon. So they obviously realise that there's some problems and they need to know what they are. So they've had all this big series of meetings to decide, you know, what the problems are, or, you know, what they can do about them and that sort of thing. but not one foreigner was invited. So you'd think it would sort of save a lot of time just to get the foreigners there and say, hey, tell us what's difficult about being a foreigner in Japan, you know? Because the aim of the meetings was supposed to be to encourage or to help in coexistence between foreigners and Japanese people in Japan. Coexistence. So look, I don't want to sound too negative, because the concept, even though it's motivated, most likely motivated just by money, because it's motivated by the economy thing, you know, the actual idea is good. They're trying to improve things for foreigners and improve relationships between foreigners and Japanese people in Japan, you know, which is sort of a nice idea. To bring it from the 19th century into the 21st century would be a good thing. But you know, not to invite any foreigners, I think is a reflection of exactly how 19th century the whole thing is. You know, it sort of made me feel, when I read about this, that it was like that, you know, the city council had a meeting about what to do with all the stray cats. You know, no need to invite stray cats to that meeting, is there? You know, we'll just sit and talk about them. We'll sit and talk about them. What can we do about them? You know, there's a lot of very well-educated foreigners in Japan. You know, there's professors at Japanese universities and all sorts of stuff that have very high levels of Japanese skills and that would have been able to contribute all sorts of worthwhile stuff to that discussion, but they don't do it. And we see this sort of attitude and this sort of I don't want to say ignorance, that sounds a bit harsh, but really that's what it is. It's an ignorance of how to deal with people internationally, you know. And we see this all the way from the top to the bottom. We see this everywhere from these politicians that are having these meetings that don't bother to invite the foreigners to talk about the foreign issues, right down to the people in the shops, where you go to the shop with your Japanese friend and you order something, and then they have a question, the staff member, you ask the question and the staff member answers to your Japanese friend, because they don't know how to deal with foreigners either. They don't know how to communicate with foreigners either. And we just see it all the time. You know, I told you guys I found 24 government tourist organisations in Japan that had some English on their websites, and I sent 24 of them emails asking them, and all I did was simple email, and I just said to them, are you interested in foreigners visiting? You know, so if it was a Japan tourist organisation, are you interested in foreigners visiting Japan? You know, Tokyo tourist organisation, are you interested in foreigners visiting Tokyo? 24 of them I contacted twice. I told you guys I did it once. I did it again a few weeks later and sent them emails and simply asked them, are you interested in having foreigners visiting? You know, because they're a tourist organisation, right? And I wanted to find out if they're interested in foreigners or just Japanese people. They had English on their website, so that gave the illusion or the impression or the image that they're interested in foreigners. Out of the 24, 0 answered. And that was, you know, twice I sent emails to them, you know, within a few weeks of each other, and 0, none of them answered. Not one of them answered to say, yes, we are interested in foreign tourists. No answer. So, you know, again, it's a combination of things, I guess. It's just people here aren't used to dealing with foreigners. You know, they just don't know how to do it. The cultural differences, the language thing. I mean, the English standards here are so low. Nobody's got any confidence speaking. Well, very few people. Again, lots of sweeping generalisations here, but you know, most of them don't have the confidence speaking English if they can. You know, learning English here is treated like learning Egyptian hieroglyphics or something. You know, it's not treated like, you don't learn English for communication here. You just learn English to pass the subject, and then you go and do something else. You know, tennis. Give up English and go join the tennis club, or you know, this year you study English and next year you study music. You know, it's sort of like that. It's not sort of treated very seriously. And actually, an extension of that too is, you know, on the TV show, in the education system, and on the TV shows, they have some TV shows at NHK. You know, 10-minute program on, you know, learning English. Let's practice English. You know, And in the education system, so at schools and in the education system and on these TV programs, the teacher is a Japanese person. So it's a sort of, you can see this is another, you know, have the meeting to talk about the foreigners but not invite a foreigner, and then, you know, have education system to teach English, but not have a foreigner teaching English. You know, have a Japanese person teaching English, but then they'll have a foreign ALT, assistant language teacher, who just performs some English. So the old Japanese guy stands there and explains for 20 minutes in Japanese some sentence of English, and then he gets the foreigner to perform that English, you know, to say that English. Isn't it a wonderful day, or whatever it is, you know, something useful like that. And then he spends another 20 minutes, the Japanese teacher, sensei, spends another 20 minutes explaining what that foreigner just said. So it's just across the board, it's a combination. We've talked about these different aspects before, but you can see in this current situation, it's all coming together. It's all being illustrated together, you know, you can see. So the reason I made this video is that it's important if you come to Japan to be aware of this stuff, because, you know, it can get frustrating. You will feel like an alien. You will encounter this sort of thing. It is strange. It is like the stray cat problem. It really is, you know, the way that the government reacts to us, and the way that individuals often, not always, but the way that the government and the way that individuals often react to us here, you know, it is like a stray cat problem, you know, the way people look at us and so on. So, you know, look, I know this is all coming across very negatively, but it's just the way it is. It's very hard to be positive about this stuff. It's very hard to be positive, you know, when they say they want tourists to come to Japan, and you contact them and say, do you want foreign tourists to come to Japan? And they don't even answer. You know, I think this is, you know, you can see this overlaps on the video we made about the reality and the illusion and the fantasy. You know, they have the meeting to talk about all this stuff, and they have lots of meetings to talk about all this stuff. Geez, we really need to get some foreigners here to bring some money into the economy, and we really need some foreigners here because we need to bolster the population. And, you know, they have meetings and talk about all this stuff, but the reality, you know, you send them an email and say, do you want foreigners to come visit Japan? They don't even answer. That's the reality, you know. And they have a meeting to talk about coexisting with the foreigners, you know, how we can coexist with the foreigners, how the foreigners can coexist in Japan with us, and don't even invite a foreigner. You know, dozens of VIP people in suits sitting around, you know, talking about this stuff, and don't even bother to invite a foreigner, you know. There's the illusion and the reality. So after a couple of weeks of discussion, how did all that go, talking about the foreign situation? Yes, it was very interesting and very interesting. You know, nothing would change. Nothing will change. The foreigners, you know, foreigners weren't even invited. So it's just the way it is. I mean, it'll probably take. It's only been 140 years, and I'm not being facetious there. It really has only been 140 years, and when you compare that to the thousands of years of Japanese history, you know, 140 years isn't very much. And it'd be the same situation if you had any country in the world that had always been just the one group of people, you know, or just imagine another small island somewhere where everybody's lived on that island for thousands of years, and then suddenly some foreigners come, you know, and that's what's going on. This isn't a criticism of the Japanese people, it's just the situation. It's just the situation. Thousands of years, all these people living here together, and then suddenly, you know, you got all these foreigners from the outside turning up, speaking different languages, and that was the other thing is the Japanese government during those meetings talked about the language thing, because they're aware of the fact, I guess, foreigners must complain or must show up in the statistics or something, but you know, as I've mentioned in a few dozen other videos, Japan is not English friendly. It's also not Spanish friendly or Portuguese friendly or other language, German friendly or other languages friendly as well. So at this meeting, they discussed the fact that they need to make more multi-language services available for foreigners. Geez, hey? Do you think? I could have told them, you could have told them that. So, and again, you know, the English Friendly Directory that we started because we recognised this problem, you know, we recognised that a lot of foreigners weren't coming here. You guys were telling us. You guys told us. I've had so many emails the last couple of years from you guys telling us that, you know, I'd really like to come to Japan, but I'm really worried, you know, about how I'll get by because I can't speak Japanese. Now, nobody says that when they're going to Europe. You don't worry about that when you're going to Europe, but people worry about that when they come to Japan because they've heard that it's very hard here if you can't speak Japanese, and it's true. So we started the English Friendly Directory to help solve that problem, and again contacted government organisations and contacted tourism organisations to tell them about it, and received zero response. You know, and this is another aspect of this problem, is that Japanese government, you know, Japanese organisations, like government organisations and Japanese companies, have zero idea how to deal with us. We've contacted hundreds and, well, thousands of companies about the English Friendly Directory, and you'll notice that most of the listings on there are listings by foreign-owned companies in Japan. So the foreign-owned companies in Japan, or the foreign-managed companies in Japan, the foreigners are saying, hey, that's a fantastic idea, that directory, that's an excellent idea. And they're registering on the directory. And the other companies, the Japanese companies that claim to be English-friendly, aren't answering our emails. So we contact them. They can list on there for free. We're not asking them for money. We just contact them and say, you know, the foreigners are looking for English-friendly companies. You know, if you list your details on here, they'll be able to find you. We're not asking them for money. They can list on there for free. They can list their name and address, their business name and address for free, and yet they don't do it. They don't do it. They just don't respond. They don't answer because they don't know how to deal with foreigners. You know, they say they put an English page on their website and say that, you know, they want to deal with the foreigners and that they want to be English friendly and everything else. But when you actually try and send them an email to talk to them, they don't answer. You know, or sometimes we just send them an email and say, you know, do you have English-speaking staff? And they don't answer. And that either means that they don't have English-friendly staff, which sort of proves that they wasted their time with that one page of English on their website, or they're ignoring us. But either way, they're not communicating with the foreigners. You know, and this you can see from the government right down to the people in the corner store, the businesses, the tourist organisations, everybody. They're not communicating with us. You know, they're not communicating with the aliens. They know the aliens are here, and in fact many of them want more aliens here, or they say they do. They recognise that they need more aliens here for the economy, but they're not communicating with the aliens. They're having meetings and talking about the aliens. They're not communicating with the aliens. So, anyway, stuff that you have to be aware of, guys, if you're coming to Japan. If you're coming to Japan, it's stuff that you need to be aware of because you're going to come across it. If you're just interested in Japan, it's stuff you should be aware of because it's the reality. You know, I get lots of thumbs down on videos like this. I suspect it's from some Japanese people who feel uncomfortable about what I'm talking about, you know. Also I get a lot of support from Japanese people about videos like this because I know they're true. But yeah, it's not nice. Look, it's much nicer to make a video about nice stuff about Japan, but we've got to be realistic and make videos about all topics, so this was another one of those. Anyway, interesting. More videos coming soon.